Show Karen forced my 15-year-old niece to remove clothes. That's not a clickbait title. That's exactly what happened the morning Shelley Cranford, president of the Silvergate Preserve HOA, cornered my niece at the park, sunglasses on like she was a cop at a crime scene. Clipboard raised like a citation was a weapon. Layered clothing rules apply to all residents, she said loud enough that even the joggers slowed down. If she refuses to comply, I'll cite her for noncompliance and escalate the violation. Alina froze. 15, sleeveless cross-country jersey, therapy dog leash looped around her wrist. She wasn't breaking any law. She was just walking. She's a child, I said, stepping between them, keeping my voice low and steady. But there's only so calm you can stay when someone's treating your family like a spectacle. Shelley's smile tightened. Mr. Levin, I'd prefer not to escalate this. I raised my phone, thumb on record. Too late. You just ordered a minor to undress in public. I'd love to hear your board's defense for that. And if you've ever seen an HOA president panic mid-sentence, you know the look, that microsecond where all the power in the room just cracks. That's when the real story starts. You know what I mean? Shelley never saw what I did next coming. My name's Marcus Levin, not just some homeowner, but a retired constitutional law professor. Used to train judges on procedural integrity, if you can believe it. And the girl Shelley just tried to humiliate? She's my niece. Alina moved in 2 months ago, after my sister passed. We buried my sister with that same jersey folded into her casket. Alina wore it today not to rebel, but because it still smelled like her mom. We were just walking her therapy dog. I didn't think I'd need a legal defense to visit a park bench, the same bench I helped lay down when this community was still being built. My sister and I would sit there after PDA meetings, laughing about the absurdity of HOA power trips. That bench hasn't changed since her funeral. Alina liked sitting there, a quiet spot, in the shade, her hands tied on the leash. She hadn't spoken to anyone at school in weeks, but that morning she said she'd go outside on her own, just her, the dog, and her mom's jersey, until Shelley decided she needed a target. Layered clothing rules apply regardless of age, she barked, waving a citation form, already half filled out. She came looking for someone to punish and figured a grieving teenager in running shoes was the safest target in the neighborhood. She didn't know I wrote the procedural review policy for homeowner enforcement boards in Fulton County, or that my brother Elijah sits on the civil bench 2 towns over. But she was about to find out. You ever had a Karen like that in your HOA? Let me know in the comments, because I want to hear how your neighborhood handles power trips like these. Next day, I walked into the HOA board meeting, sat at the back, and just watched Shelley work the room, acting like it was her personal courtroom. The clubhouse stank of lemon cleaner and entitlement. Her voice was all cheer, words sharp as a scalpel. Let's move to violations, she chirped, tapping her pen against a spreadsheet. We've had several incidents of improper attire in shared spaces. She'd even prepared a color-coded printout, calling out visual disruptions, like a teen's shirt could destabilize the block. Nobody mentioned what she'd done to Alina. Not a flinch, just bureaucratic gloss. 3 residents, 5 board members, and at the end of the table, Priya Sharma, a board member who wouldn't meet my eyes. Shelley kept talking, pushing for consistency in the rules. Alina's grief shirt had become a bullet point on a chart. When she finally opened the floor, I stood up. My name's Marcus Levin. I live on West Glen. Yesterday, the HOA president ordered a minor to remove clothing in public. No parent, no due process. The child isn't even a property owner. Heads turned. Shelley stiffened, tried to shut me down. This isn't the time or place. It's exactly the time and place, I said. Priya spoke softly. He has the floor. Shelley backed off. That was enough for now. I wanted it on record. I wanted them uncomfortable. After the meeting, I caught Priya in the hallway. She wouldn't make eye contact. You saw what happened, I said. She just shook her head and hurried off, but the way her hands shook, I knew she'd been rattled. Later, walking past the bench in the park, it hit me. This wasn't just about HOA rules. This was about power and how easily it gets twisted. My phone buzzed. Email from the HOA, notice of secondary violation. Now they said Alina had shown defiance. They were building a case, assuming I wouldn't know how to fight back. But this is what I do. I dug into the bylaws. The so-called layered attire guideline had been passed in an emergency quorum meeting 6 months ago. No emergency was listed. No sign-in, no agenda. Just Shell's digital signature. Sloppy? Absolutely. Potentially void? You bet. They built their dress code on a procedural ghost. I spotted Priya again at school pickup, clutching papers like a shield. Shell's rewriting the violation process, she whispered. Redirecting appeals, adding review delays. Says it's temporary. But she was helping Shell build a wall around her power. You know what she did to Alina was wrong, I said. Priya's jaw tightened. You think I want this? I have a daughter. If I speak up, Shell will come for her. I got it. Fear is how bullies survive. I'm not asking you to go public. But if you have anything, records, emails, timestamps, I need it. She didn't say no. That night, Alina left her room for the first time in days. We sat together on the stone bench. She kept her knees to her chest, the dog at her side. I didn't cry when Mom died, she said, voice small. She always said crying makes people treat you like a project. I let the silence breathe. But when that woman yelled at me, I felt gross, like I was some kind of mistake. The damage wasn't in the rule. It was in the shame. You didn't do anything wrong, I told her. I'm going to fix this. She didn't say anything, but she didn't leave, either. Next morning, envelope under my door. No name, just 2 PDFs. One, a log showing Shell marked the emergency vote during a power outage. Only the outage was over by noon, and the vote happened at 8 p.m. The other, a handwritten amendment draft with Shell's notes in the margin. This wording closes the parent loophole. Priya had found a way to help. 2 days later, glossy HOA envelope. Official notice of a community hearing for ongoing noncompliance. They were trying to drag me into their process, hoping to bury me in paperwork. Didn't work. I walked the envelope straight to Shell's office. Her door was half open, her face blank as I put the letter on her desk. We both know this hearing has no basis, I said. The board approved it unanimously, she replied. Based on a code never ratified correctly, in a meeting that didn't have quorum. Her face twitched. The meeting followed emergency protocol. There was no emergency. The vote happened after dark. Power was back before noon. The silence was sharp. You're trying to bury a procedural error by inventing a compliance dispute, I told her. You think if you make enough noise, people won't check the paperwork. This isn't a courtroom, Mr. Levin. No, but it's close enough. That night, someone tossed a crumpled flyer in my yard. Community values are not optional. If you can't follow the rules, you shouldn't live here. Alina found it, folded it neatly, and left it on the porch. She didn't say a word. I barely slept, mind looping through documents and codes. At dawn, coffee in hand, I scanned Priya's anonymous documents again. Shell had written the entire visual compliance framework herself, specifically adding a minor specific clause with must bypass parental discretion in the margin, underlined twice. And then, chillingly, don't want another Levin niece situation. This wasn't just about the rule. It was premeditation. I took everything to the county clerk, every HOA filing for the last 12 months. That emergency vote? 3 proxies, but the signatures were missing. No chain of custody, no attendance. The amendment had no legal standing. Without it, the dress code policy was gone. Every citation, invalid. I sent copies to my brother Elijah, my old policy colleague Nathan, and Priya. At home, I laid the documents out for Alina. Is this how you used to teach it? She asked. More or less. Then teach her. Show everyone. That evening, call from Priya. The proxies were never signed. Shelley drafted them herself, said she'd get them handled later. I can't testify, but you can have my notes. She was done hiding, at least in her own way. The next morning, no flyers, no emails, just sunlight and quiet. Alina was up, standing at the kitchen window. She knows we're coming for her, doesn't she? I nodded. That afternoon, I filed a formal procedural challenge at the property management office, not Shell's HOA desk. Sealed envelope, full documentation. That alone would halt enforcement. But I wanted more. I wanted it on record, not just for us, but for every resident ever steamrolled by a fake rule. Shell called that night. I've received your packet. I'm prepared to rescind the citation and issue a formal apology. Too late for that. You're trying to destroy the structure of this board. No, I'm trying to expose it. If it collapses, it was never a structure, just scaffolding overwrought. She went quiet. You've made a powerful enemy, she warned. No, you have. Alina and I walked to the hearing together. She wore her mom's jersey, chin up. The clubhouse was packed, nerves tight as piano wire. Shelley started her usual script. I waited until the floor opened. I'm here not to argue opinion, but to submit formal objection to an amendment passed under an emergency quorum that never met legal standards. I laid out the evidence, the fake proxies, the power outage lie, the internal memos. Without a valid amendment, you enforced a non-existent rule on a minor with no guardian present. The board murmured. Shelley tried to deflect, but Greg, the usually silent treasurer, stood up. I never voted on that amendment. My name was added after. One by one, the board members voted, and for the first time, Shelley's voice didn't carry the room. She didn't leave her seat. Even after the vote was unanimous without her, she just sat, fingers white on the armrest. For someone who built her power on presence, silence was her loudest loss. But I wasn't done. I presented a memo showing Shell's strategy to use minor enforcement as a deterrent, to scare adults into compliance. You used my niece to threaten this community, I said, calm but clear. That's not enforcement. That's abuse. Greg spoke. You'll step down by tomorrow morning, or we go to county compliance. Shelley just packed her things and left. No applause, just relief. Afterward, Alina's posture was different, taller, somehow. On the walk home, she asked, what happens to the bench now? It stays, I said. For the first time, the weight felt lighter, like we weren't holding it alone anymore. A week later, the special meeting was packed. Parents, retirees, teenagers. Greg addressed the room, not with celebration, but honesty. We let policies slip into performance. We wrapped humiliation in the language of enforcement. I held up the original violation form. This was never about modesty. It was about control. When a teenager asked, if someone like her tries this again, what stops them? I answered, we do. That Sunday, Alina and I went back to the bench, just to sit, not to mourn, just to be. They wanted me quiet, she said. They thought we'd fold. That's what usually happens, I said. She understood now. Sometimes, the only thing more dangerous than a written rule is a community that refuses to question it. Greg sent word that Shelley had resigned. No apology, just a notarized statement. But what mattered was what came after. New policies, open votes, a rule that no minor could ever be disciplined without guardian notice, and a public record of every future vote. They called it the Levin Standard. I didn't want my name on it, but Alina smiled when she read it. That was enough. So if you've ever faced an HOA like ours, or a Karen with a clipboard, let me know in the comments. Share your story. Because rules aren't justice. And silence, well, silence just lets bullies win.